Hey guys, Dr. Sippers here, and welcome to my review of Series 8, Episode 4, Listen. Now, Listen was advertised fairly heavily because of the teaser before Series 8 of Peter Capaldi sitting on top of the TARDIS looking all creepy and saying, Listen. So, this episode has had a fairly large build-up, and it's been known for quite a while. It's a very scary episode, and it's one of Moffat's really good episodes he does ever so often. So, we've seen it, and what do I think? Well, I can safely say it is my joint favourite episode of the new series, with Day of the Doctor. I thought it was brilliant, and I think it makes Robot of Sherwood, last week's episode, which lots of people actually liked, look pathetic. So, I'm going to go through all the things I picked up from the episode. I've seen it twice, and I'll hopefully be able to justify my opinion. First, I like the beginning. I liked how we saw a lot of what Peter Capaldi does to him when he's on his own. What he does, like thinking about things, and I've noticed a bit of a trend here with the new series, where the episode starts off with the Doctor being on his own, and then he goes and picks up Clara, and she's doing her own thing, and they all go off. And obviously, when he was asking the questions out loud, you suddenly realise that he's talking out loud. And that is what these new creatures, that was the thing, he says you're only aware of them, except for in that moment that when you talk aloud, and you suddenly realise, oh, he's talking aloud, so they're out there. And then he asks them, what would they do? Then he sees listen written on the chalkboard. So that was really cool. I don't think I explained that very well, but I'm sure you know what I mean. Then we saw Clara and Danny having their drink at last, which went pretty badly, I would say. Yeah. And when it all ended up bad, Danny hit his head on the table, just like he did in Into the Dalek. So it was a direct connection there. Again, in this episode, like when the Doctor picks up Clara, she's upset, but he doesn't care. We're seeing more of him being alien, and he's very insensitive and almost rude to Clara, but he doesn't feel there's anything wrong with that. Fair dues. He was wearing a black shirt in this episode of the Doctor with like sort of white sparkly bits on it, and I like how Peter Capaldi is changing his costume, his shirt at least, almost every episode. I think it goes really well with his character, so I thought that was a nice touch. And then obviously when Clara was doing a thing in the TARDIS, Danny called, which distracted her, and that's how they ended up in Gloucester in the mid-90s at a child's home. And obviously we saw the little kid, and I assumed pretty quickly it was Danny, but then we were told he was called Rupert, so I'm like, oh, okay. But then it was Rupert Pink, and then he said he wanted to change his name, and it all suddenly made sense that this was a young Danny, and the reason they were there is because Danny called and Clara got distracted, and that's why they were there. This episode also saw the return of the psychic paper, which I don't believe we have seen since Night Terrors, I read somewhere, which was a Series 6 episode with Matt Smith. I have no idea if that's true, I just quickly googled it, but I know Matt Smith hardly used it compared to Christopher Eccleston and Dave Tennant, so I hope Peter Capaldi makes a regular thing of it, because and it also obviously marks the first time the 12th Doctor has used a psychic paper. We also know the Doctor likes to steal coffee. Then we got to the creepiest moment of them all, when Clara and Rupert are under the bed and someone sits on it, and we come out and you see someone with the cover over them, and it's very, very spooky. The Doctor was reading Where's Wally, and Rupert said, that's not a Where's Wally book, he's not there, and then the Doctor says, how do you know? You just might not have found him yet. This is a direct connection to the whole plot of the story, where how would you know these creatures are there if they're brilliant at hiding? And how would you know if a creature has evolved to have the perfect hiding mechanism if you can't see them? Because you wouldn't be able to find them if they could hide perfectly. So this was a connection there. When Peter Capaldi was telling Rupert about how being scared is good in a way, and try and like convince him it's all cool, that was very like Matt Smith-like. It was very 11th Doctor-y, and once again I saw past Doctors shining through, primarily Matt Smith. And this episode reminded me a lot of Night Terrors, because it's a child scared of his closet in Night Terrors, and it's very similar. We also learnt that the Clara thinks the Doctor is a grey-haired stick insect. The Doctor used his dad skills where he told Rupert a story, once upon a time, touched his head, fell asleep, the end. Brilliant! If I ever have kids, I'm so using that. Also, when next up the Doctor took Clara back to her date, she had another go at the date, and then she accidentally brought up Rupert Pink, and Danny's like, whoa, what? And then it's done brilliantly, because the moment he realises what she said, someone in the background in the restaurant drops a glass, and that shattering a glass and the stop of like the joyful music all at once is a beautiful connection. Like, all happens at once, and it is great to end the mood and on to the next part. Very well done. And then the orange spacesuit with Sanctuary Base 6. Glad the badge is still on there, because you know that was 8 years ago we first saw this spacesuit, and it's still got the Sanctuary Base 6 badge on it, which is great. And we all thought it would be the Doctor, and then the helmet came off, and it was Danny. Well, it wasn't, but we thought it was. We're like, what? How did that happen? And it was Orson Pink, who we'll get to in a minute. And he is well, we'll get to him now actually, because he is a pioneer time traveller from 100 years in Clara's future, so around 2114. And he was sent into next week, but instead he sent to the end of the universe. And the thing that really annoyed me is that was the Doctor's spacesuit, but in the videos, the news reports of Orson Pink, he was still wearing the same spacesuit, and that really annoys me because it makes no sense at all. Then he has Dan the Soldier Man, the toy that Rupert had, who would later obviously become Danny, and Orson told Clara it was a family heirloom, which indicated that they were related, and obviously they're identical pretty much. And then we are led to believe that one of Orson's great-grandparents was a time traveller. So either that was Clara or Danny, maybe. And I'm fairly sure, I think he does, Danny will become a full-time companion with Clara. I'm fairly sure that's happening. And we don't know which one of them it's talking about. So that could either be Clara as the time-travelling grandparent and great-grandparent, and Danny doesn't come along, or Danny comes along and Clara leaves, which she might be. We have the rumours of that. So anyway, we are led to believe that Orson Pink is Danny Pink and Clara's great-grandson. Although Orson did not recognise her at all and denied having any connection or family photographs with her. So it's possible that he's just never seen a picture of his great-grandmother, but this is like the 21st and the 22nd century, so I'm pretty sure people have lots of pictures of their relatives. The Doctor rages at Clara, tells her to get into the TARDIS, shortly after he opens the airlock, which by the way was very clever, how there's nothing left in the universe, but it was locked. Typical Moffat, typical creepy, very nicely done. But the Doctor rages at Clara, which we saw leak a few weeks ago, which at the time looked very bad because it was uncomfortable how angry this Doctor was getting, but now when you've seen it in context, it's actually not that bad. But the Doctor did rage at Clara, told her to get in the TARDIS. Then when Clara tries to get them out of there with the finger thing again, she gets distracted by the Doctor, waking up, breathing, and going, no, I think he was trying to say don't do it, and that distracted her, which led her to a barn. Now, they went to a barn, and I thought it looked familiar. And then we hear a child crying under the covers. When Clara went up there, I was expecting there to be her to pull it back, and there'd be nothing there, and it would be these creatures that were actually crying. But then people walk in and start talking about him, and then they mention he's never going to be a Time Lord, and then suddenly it all makes sense. This child is the first Doctor. And we know all this, blah blah blah, and it's all cool, and it all suddenly, as I say, it makes perfect sense. Those people, were they the Doctor's parents? You never know, because where exactly was this? We know this was a barn, and it indicates to me that it's sort of a barn, maybe on an estate or on a farm, and there's a big house which the Doctor's meant to be sleeping in, but the other boys, whoever they are, which to me would indicate he's at a child's home or something, or he's got siblings, or his parents simply take care of other people, but whether the Doctor's parents or his carers or whatever, we don't know. Then the Doctor wakes up and says, sometimes perverting the course of human history, which is a reference to Tom Baker, one of Tom Baker's first words as the Fourth Doctor, which was a nice touch. Then the boy sits up out of bed and Clara grabs his leg, which is the whole thing. Clara's basically set off the dream into the Doctor's head when he is very young, and that's how this whole episode happened, because the Doctor was scared of this dream he had, which wasn't a dream, it was Clara, stopping him from waking up and finding the TARDIS and everything going catastrophically wrong. Brilliant detail, because the child even had almost William Hartnell-like hair. It was really well done. Then Clara gives a speech about how fear is a superpower, and then obviously the Doctor later uses this to Rupert earlier on in the episode. Very timey-wimey. And we find out, exactly as I expected, or should I say suspected, that the barn is the same barn featured in The Day of the Doctor, where the War Doctor goes to use the moment and end the Time War. And when we see that barn, it's surrounded by desert. Now, I always assumed, we never really found out where that barn was. I always assumed it was on a planet nearby to Gallifrey, but I'm assuming now it was on Gallifrey, and I would like to know why it's in the middle of nowhere in The Day of the Doctor. Perhaps during the war, everything around it was obliterated, including the main house I was talking about that's near the barn where the Doctor should be, but instead he's hiding out in the barn, has been obliterated, and for whatever reason the barn remains. It's all cool, but I do not know. And then we end the episode beautifully, Clara hugging the Doctor, and he still doesn't like hugging, like he made clear in Deep Breath. And then she goes, finds Danny, she kisses him, so that's the next chapter of this arc with Danny and Clara. We found out that Clara left the Dan the Soldier Man toy with the Doctor. Now this is probably going to become very connected, and I think the Doctor's going to be quite angry when he finds out that Danny Pink is Clara's date. It's all getting a bit confusing now. It's kind of like a new River song. And yes, so that's it. That's all I can really say. I give this episode a solid 10 out of 10. I thought it was brilliant. As I say, it is joint first as the best episode of the new series, in my opinion. It makes Blink look rubbish, in my opinion. I don't think either of them are scary. I didn't think Listen was that scary at all. I still think by far the scariest was the Empty Child and the Doctor's Dancers. But for some reason everyone thought the Weeping Angels and Blink was scary, but no, the Empty Child destroyed me for about 2 years of my life. It made me terrified of going to bed. So I would definitely say, I know Blink was commonly thought of as the best new series episode, but I would be appalled if Listen doesn't take that place now in like the next poll. So I give it 10 out of 10, and if I was to rate the 4 episodes we've had so far of Series 8 in order, I'd say Listen's at the top, followed by Deep Breath, then Into the Dalek, and then Robot of Sherwood. Into the Dalek was good because they had Daleks, but it wasn't great. Robot of Sherwood was pointless, it didn't achieve anything, it was fun, it was a nice break, but I didn't really like it so much. And Deep Breath was cool because it was a regeneration story, I love them, and Listen was a genius piece of writing by Stephen Moffat. So there we go, that's my review, they're my opinions. Next week we have Time Heist, and I do not know much about this episode, other than Clara and the Doctor try and rob a bank. So we will see, wait for next Saturday. So I will see you guys next Sunday, next Sunday, and I think that's the 21st of September, and I'll be doing my review of Time Heist. So thanks for watching, guys. Have a good week. See you next weekend. Bye.